This thing is firmed up. It's a little thin, so I am going to put some more of the Propoxy on before I go too much more. I also don't particularly love the shape that I came up with for it, so I'm going to try and fix that. I feel like the hardest part is getting this plastic off the edge of it. So I'm trying to figure out the way to see your guys' comments in real time. I haven't figured that out yet, but I will. This is kind of the beginning of my 2-day build idea. Well, actually, my friend Eric came up with this idea based on me when I did the T-Mobile puppets, and I'm going to try and do 2-day builds pretty regularly on these channels. Okay, so I mixed it up to get kind of this gray color. I want to put a little bit more material up front. Make it look less like Superman's shield. I smooth it out the best I can. Of course, I add more material to the one side that was pretty much right, and not too much to the other side. Okay. And again, the more of this epoxy you put on there, heavier it's going to get. But for this small of an item, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. The more foam you use, the better chance you'll have at it not being particularly heavy. So like on the Mr. Rogers puppets replicas that I made it largely out of this stuff, and they got super heavy, but it did have a foam core on the inside of it. It was that green floral foam, which I could sculpt just with my fingers to the right basic shape and then cover it with this stuff. But after it was sanded and painted, it looked like plastic, so that's kind of what I wanted. Okay, so now hopefully you can see it's a little bit rounder now. I'm going to look at it from every angle so that I make sure it's even and there's no humongous blemishes on it. I mean, you can always add more if it doesn't look great, or you can sand it off and clean it up. Problem I was having was that it was so thin on this one side that any sanding would have gone right down to the foam. So, and it was so flat on the front. I didn't like that either. Okay, I think that's pretty much the way it's going to look. Prior to sanding and smoothing it out with a spot putty. And the same way of doing it, well, other than well, there was no foam under structure, so it's actually it has nothing to do with it. The way we did the noses on Glee was we sculpted it out of this stuff and then covered them in fabric. So for small features like that, this stuff is great. Okay, I'll leave that alone. I say that and then I stick my thumbs all over it again. Okay, leave that alone. There's the nose. I could also use this to make little dog fingernails. I've done that before. The teeth, that's another thing I might make out of this. I actually, with Eddie and Tilly's teeth, what I did was I took a little thin piece of L200 and cut the little teeth out. But on that bear that I made, I don't know if you've seen that, I actually sculpted the teeth out of this stuff and then painted them white. I may do that on these. The nice thing about the foam ones is that you can close the mouth completely and they'll just mash down. But the nice thing about the Propoxy teeth is that they actually look a little bit more realistic and you can kind of define their shapes a little bit better. So I might try both and see how that works. But yeah, it's not generating any heat yet. So next step is to figure out the ears, I guess. I'm going to run, I think, a wire through the skull here just to give them a little bit of shape. One ear, according to this little dossier that I have, says that his one ear is always flopped down. So I'm gonna make sure that happens. I'm also gonna try and match the shape of the ear. And they aren't going to be made of foam. I just put those on so that I could kind of see. And so you look more like a Furby. Okay, this is starting to give off a little bit of heat, so I'm going to go over it just a little bit more with some rubbing alcohol. So you can kind of smooth it out without doing too much damage to it now. Okay, that's done. I'm not sure if this is I suppose you could use foam clay for this as well. And then I'd have to go through all this, but I do like the more plasticky look of the features. So I'm going to pull these fake ears off. I think while this is drying, I'm going to put a wire in there. And if I have a wire, okay. So this is actually the same wire. This is the same wire that I use for arm rods. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a hole, goes through his skull all the way through and just has the two ends sticking out. And then I'm going to bend them up into shape and then put that fish tubing on top of it so that it's not quite as sharp. And I'm also going to cut them off so that they're not sticking straight out the end, so somebody doesn't get their eye poked out by it. I think I'm going to have to make a hole here, though. Let's see. Those of you squeamish. I should tie up the sew up the bottom too. Okay. Trying to find a spot where. All right. You know what I should do? I have no idea where that hole went. I should make a little mark so I can find it again. Do the same on this side. There we go. There's one. This is why you want to avoid the uncanny valley when you make these things. It's kind of disturbing when you're putting these big rods through their heads. Ooh. You can see it sticking out there. Okay. So now he's got, and there, this is going to be Steve Martin. There, I'm done. So let's just give it a little bit of structure here for his ears. So this is the one that's bent. This is the one that isn't. So now I could actually, if I wanted to put foam in there, I don't think I'm going to put foam in. But you can actually just feed that on there. There's the other one. I don't plan on using these ears, but well, you can kind of start to see how that's going to take shape. I think I need to adjust that, where that one ear. Okay, that looks pretty good. That's just about kicked. So now you can start to see how his nose is going to work. Let's see, what's nice about this having it foam on the back is I can actually just pin it on now. There we go. I think I'll sew up the bottom coming up. And that's when that nose is black, it'll look great on there. He's starting to look like a dog at least. And from the side. Well, I'm going to let this completely cure, and then I'm going to sand it, and I'll come back on when I'm putting spot putty on there so you can kind of see that process. All right.